So I've continued to have jamming problems, and so I decided to go take a look at what I've been given here. So the one on the left is the one that I've been having jamming problems. The PTFE Bowden tubes weren't properly fitting in there. They were hard to jam in. I couldn't get PLA to work right. I just couldn't get anything to work. But so I took a look at one of my replacement ones here, and we noticed that the length of thread on the top is longer. The machining is better with 4 little grooves in there, whereas there are no grooves in there. But the key is the difference in size between that heat break and that heat break. So if we get closer, if it stays in focus, look at the difference. One has longer thread, so the one on the right, the official E3D one, has longer thread. But the one on the right also looks thinner, which means less heat will be transferred up the heat break, which means that it's far less likely to jam, especially with PLA. I wonder if that's the problem. So some people have decent success using counterfeit parts, and by counterfeit I mean non-genuine. So E3D is basically a very nice company. They're kind of like Tesla, where they publish their designs for free online, so anybody can go and see the prints for how these parts should be made in terms of dimensions. What they don't have, however, is how the part should be controlled, and or what makes parts critical to assemble and what doesn't. So one of the reasons that I really rely on E3D, like genuine parts, is differences like this. So the one on the right here is the official E3D one. This has a much smaller heat break here, which means that there's less total surface area as it goes up to transfer heat from the hot side to the cold side. In addition, it has longer threads on both ends. This means that more heat is transferred to the filament on the hot side, and more heat is transferred to the fins on the cool side. So this side melts it better. This side cools it better because there's more surface area interfacing with threads on the inside of the heatsink, which means that it cools it down faster and more consistently, which allows the printer to not jam, essentially. All metal hot ends weaknesses are essentially how they work with PLA. Is typically the hardest thing to print because it has such a low temperature that even some creep through there is a big no-no. That's the kind of experience I was getting with several failed prints, where because it was jamming up inside here when it would retract from the hot side into the cold side and get frozen inside of this chamber and then not want to go back out. So the reason that counterfeits have such a hard time, and they publish it for free, right? Anybody can make it, and so they can't. This functionally fits. It has the right threads on both sides. Focus. It has the right threads on both sides here, but the thing is, it's not machined as precisely, and it doesn't have the key characteristics here. So if they decided to copy this one for one, and if they decided to put the same amount of threads here and there and the same thickness, it would probably honestly work as long as they polish up the inside, which is another characteristic that E3D doesn't publish. So the reason that this one doesn't work here, and the reason that they do it, geez Louise, cell phone cameras, what are you going to do? The reason that they do this is because it's cheaper to make, and they don't have to have as good of tools in order to do it. They can crank it out faster without worrying about tight tolerances, right? So the filament diameter, and that's the plug there, the filament diameter is 1.75 millimeters. You don't want to get much bigger than that, or you'll start having slop in here, and then you'll be able to form those plugs by just pulling up, because the amount of filament feeding in from the top is 1.75 millimeters, and so you'll have a cold inside but a warm outside as it flows through and becomes a liquid, and then it flows back up. The middle will want to pull, but the sides will want to stay whatever temperature the metal is, right? So that's part of the cause here, is that there's a larger inside when they go and manufacture the inside of it, but also the outside. It's a lot less risky to add in some wall thickness compared to this one, because that'll result in less broken parts. Same thing for the threads. If you can spare 5 seconds here and 5 seconds here turning it, that's less tooling, that's less time, and that's less effort that you get to do and ship the part out the door. So it looks like this part, which I bought from Amazon a long time ago, wasn't actually a genuine part, which is why I've been having so many problems with it and I've been trying so many different things. But this part, this is shipped from E3D them online themselves. This part looks as good as possible. Their machining centers are excellent. They're truly excellent, and which is why I always recommend the genuine E3D parts, just because their machinists seem to know what they're doing. The clone parts, they may work, they may not work, and that's kind of the thing. This one, it did a passable job for a while, but it's just now that it's gotten a little bit crusty, and even after I cleaned it, so after I burnt out all the material, I actually scrubbed it out with some rubbing alcohol. It's still just not up to the task. So we're gonna reassemble our printer and then put this one in and see how it works. So when you put the E3D hot ends back together here, so just kind of talking through what makes this one bad, what makes this one good. But another really important thing when reassembling these hot ends is to make sure that you get, focus, there we go, is to make sure that you get the appropriate amount of thermal grease on here so that it truly makes the absolute best contact when it's screwed in there. Because you want the most amount of heat immediately leaving this heat break and not melting the plastic that actually is in there. So that's actually, I have a little thing of plastic that was stuck in from me just jamming it in. But so you just take your thermal paste here, make sure you get her lathered up real good. Real good. I'm just going to put a line. I'll wait till my camera realizes where I am. Line down that way. And then we will thread it in. And so the reason I did line all the way down instead of wrapping around is that I'm reapplying a new layer every time. And we'll make sure that that one's snug before reinstalling it into the heat block and putting it together with the nozzle again. Hopefully this should solve all our problems, and it makes sense looking at the differences between the two. First, kind of an effective demo as to what I was talking about in terms of gumming up. So here we have my hot end floating in the range of 280 degrees Celsius, which is way stinking over where PLA should be. So if this was the time that PLA would jam, that is where it should jam. So here's actually one of the failed prints. So as you can see in there, we're getting a whole bunch of little sticky, drippy nonsense, really weak infill. It's just not working right. So I've had a bunch of these come out where you can kind of start to see very poor layer adhesion, not enough filament coming out here. That surface on the hole, the whole shebang, right? So here, my retraction settings are typically 0.5. I go up to 1 millimeter for PETG, right? So here's the thing. This is way hotter than it should be, right? So we got filament coming out the bottom here. Drying. Okay. So like 1 millimeter is probably like less than this. Like that's probably more than 1 millimeter, okay? But here's the thing. I'm gonna go up like this. And then it just doesn't care. It just keeps working. Like it. Here, I'll rotate it. This might get people sick, but like that is why you buy the genuine stuff. They know what they're doing. I'm flabbergasted. I would love to visit their machining centers to learn how they make all this stuff, because it's just immaculate. Like whoever makes their parts that they sell, whether it's their hobgoblins, which I use in the new streeter here, and their heat breaks and their blocks and their nozzles, and however the heck they plated the nozzle X the way they did, like I want to see that someday. So E3D, if you ever see this, invite me over. It'll be a good time. If you like the content, please, leave a comment below, like, subscribe, all that kind of stuff. If you got questions about why, what I find out, you know, just ask. Thanks for watching. Hasta la bye-bye.